All right, today we're going to talk about histograms. Probably in 6th grade you did circle graphs. You probably did line plots. And so now what we're really responsible for here in 7th grade are histograms and frequency tables. So that's what we really want to look at today. Frequency is the number of times an event occurs. The frequency table groups data values into equal intervals with no gaps between intervals and no intervals overlapping. Okay. A histogram is related to a dot plot, or we would call it a line plot. Instead of dots, it uses bars to display how data are distributed. Unlike a bar graph that uses categories, histogram must be numbers and ordered along the x-axis. The width of each column is called its interval. The height of each column is called its frequency. I'm not exactly sure what it's talking about, bin to the right. Okay, so let's go ahead and make a histogram. The nice thing about this histogram that they started for us is that we already know the interval. Sometimes when we look at data, we're going to have to determine the intervals ourselves, but we don't need to do that with this data that's been given to us. So we have prices from 4 to 449. So the next would be 450 to 5 to 499, excuse me, to 499. And then we have 5 to 549. And then 550 to 599. All right. Now it's really easy to want to say 450 to 5 to 549, but we can't do that. Otherwise, our intervals are overlapping, and that's one of our rules. They cannot overlap. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at the data where it says make our frequency table and histogram, and we're going to go ahead and start our frequency table. Now that we have our intervals set up, see how all of the numbers in our intervals, they're equally distributed. It's 50 cents in between each interval, or 49 cents. So $4. I'm going to cross that out so I don't make a mistake of repeating my data. $4, $4.25, $4.50, $4.75, $5.95, $5.50, $5.50, $5.75. All right, now that we have our frequency table taken care of, we're going to go ahead and create our histogram. This is where that's going to occur. Now, I realize that your histogram, the graph on your histogram didn't show up very dark on here, but I think it's enough for you to be able to create it. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create the intervals that we made here on our frequency table. So my first interval, I'm just going to go 2 blocks and call it 4 to 449. I'm going to change colors of it so it's easier for you to see. You certainly do not need to do that. My next interval is 450 to 499. If you can't see what it says, you should turn up the volume to hear. All right. Next, even though there's no data by it, I'm going to go ahead and label this as 5 to 549. And then finally, my last set of data is going to be 550 to 599. All right, Now my y-axis is going to be the frequency that this data actually occurs. So I'm going to go ahead, since it's only 4 is my maximum, I'll say 0 here. And I'm just going to go ahead and spread it out and say 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. Just spreading it out because I really don't have a lot of data and I don't want it all to be squished down to the bottom. I want it to be nice spread out. So from 4 to 449, there were 3 sandwiches that were priced there. So I'm going to bring my bar all the way up to there. All right, here's my first bar. The number of sandwiches that were 450 to 499, there were 2 of them. So that bar is going to come up to 2. Okay. 5 to 549, there were none. So that just stays right there. And finally, 550 to 599, that is going to be 4 of them. So it's going to come all the way up to here. All right, and here is my histogram. See how we keep our bars side by side, okay? That's one thing that we need to know. With a bar graph, we always create a space between them, but not with a histogram, all right? That kind of indicates that 4 to 449 leads straight into 450 to 499. That's why there is no gap between those bars whatsoever. All right. Next one. I'm going to have you do this, but I'm going to kind of try to get you started here with some of the intervals. It says the number of song requests per day for a 2-week period at a radio station are listed below. Make a frequency table and a histogram. So let's see. Song requests. All right, and that's the number. All right, the tally of the song requests is what we're going to say. Okay, so let's see here. It seems like our smallest number is 10, and our largest number is going to be, you probably saw 34. So I could say 10 to 15, or 10 to 14, 15, 10 to 15, 14 to 20, 20, 10 to 14 to 29. Let's see. Let's just take a look at it this way. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 intervals. We've got 24 divided by 4. And that's going to be 6. So let's see, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So we'll say 10 to 15. That's 6. 16 to 21. 22 to 27. 28. That's not going to work. Because I guess there's actually 25. So let's go ahead and make it into 28. So I guess that would be 7. What I'm trying to do is break it up into nice even intervals. Let's see here. Why don't we do this? We'll do 10 to 19, 20. That doesn't break it up very nicely, does it? We'll do 10 to 17. And then we'll do 18 to 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, to 33, and then 34, 34, 35, 36, 37, 40, to 40. I think that works out. Okay, so now we have nice even intervals. What I did is I looked at the data and I tried to choose a number that was divisible by 4, all right? And at first I said that there were 24, all right? I looked at 10 from 34. So I said 34 minus 10, and I've got 24. But there's actually 25 values in there, so I just went up to the next and made it 28. So my interval should be going by 7s. I think. Okay, so let's not get caught up in that. So now that we have that, now that you have your intervals, if you came up with a better way to set up your intervals, please let us know in class. Go ahead, tally your data, and then go ahead and create your histogram. Thank you.